It was important for my mindset to be shaped the right way for me to be able to navigate through life. There's a lot of things that I started exploring just to discover my strength, and I like to see myself as a jack of all trades and a master of some. The biggest battle with any form of infirmity is what goes on within. You can either choose to go through a journey of self-pity or pull yourself up and be able to navigate through life. It became really appealing. At that time, I was torn in between either going for an internship at Google or working with this startup that was actually figuring things out.
I think the answer is obvious.
Yeah, the answer is obvious, right? But an evening, I was craving burgers and made a burger. The journey of Ballistic started like that. One of the guys was like, yo, if you start a business, I'll fund it.
Yeah.
I think it's the most impulsive decision I've ever made in my life. I was like, hell yeah, let me start it.
Yeah.
Just like that. It was exciting for me because I was like, I can literally create 100 restaurants in the back and feed people without having to own a real estate or like buy fancy furniture.
4 years, man.
Almost.
Yeah, one could think that it's like one or 2 years. What makes a great burger?
What makes a great burger?
All right, Richard, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Yusuf.
How's it going, man?
Finally.
I kind of feel like we know each other. Okay, not know, but like we've met a very long time ago. I think it was in an iDebate or something, and we had did we have like a tour, Impact Hub or something, when you were doing something with Google?
Yeah.
For developers, something like that, a very long time, right? It's like, probably like 13 years ago or 14 years ago. But over the years, we've kept definitely getting in touch, every now and then, just checking on each other, like what are you up to and stuff. Definitely a big user of your product right now, which we're going to talk about later on. But I want to take a step back and really try to understand Richard growing up, Richard as a kid, right? How was it?
That's always a big question to ask, especially when you've accumulated years. Richard as a kid. I was quite a normal kid, not stubborn, not rowdy. But I would say the big events of my childhood is definitely one of the things that kind of shaped me as a person. Quite early at birth, I would say months after, I got polio, which affects your ability to move basically normally without assistance. So I wear a prosthetic for me to be able to move. Already that is some sort of seal that is going to determine your identity, whether you like it or not. So it was important for my mindset to be shaped the right way for me to be able to navigate through life. Because you're different. People remind you every day that you're different. People will either feel some sort of sympathy or pity or be numb about who you are and your abilities. So that was, I can't say that I remember those days because I was a baby. But now the more you grow up, primary school, nursery, you start realizing that you're different. And so with that, one of the things I keep telling my friends is I'm really grateful for the parents and the family I was born in because I think even today, I can't remember a single day where they made me feel like I had some sort of infirmity or physical disability. And that played a big role in kind of shaping my mindset towards life. And some of the things I recall being a child was my mom or dad will send me to pick a jerry can, a 20 liter, basically 20 kg jerry can, a 7-year-old. And And I would think about it. I'm like, do these people realize that I'm actually not able to do this? But the older I grew, I was like, okay, this actually really helped me because it pushed my limits and enabled me to explore spaces where I could thrive. So a lot of the things I did, even at an early stage, was to kind of be in a state where I am able to establish what my strengths are and work on those. So I started exploring a lot of artistic spaces, because from the get-go, at least my family, uncles, aunties, kind of noticed it quite early. They would gift me with painting boards, pencils and markers and stuff, and I would find myself drawing stuff. Some of them probably don't recall and don't remember those things, but there are things that I look back to and I'm like, okay, this is how I started drawing. And then I loved music, singing. I would listen to a singer and I just want to mimic what they're doing and try to do it pitch perfect, you know? So the space of art became a space where I was able to express myself and also be able to introduce myself to the world in a different light. And I feel like the first friends I made, or even sports, I loved sports. I mean, early in primary school, I would just go in the goal post and be the goalkeeper. That was my position. And as much as I loved to be a number 9, but the team would be like, you stay there. We trust you there more, you know. So, even later on, I kind of found my place in the sports world. But you can see that there's a lot of things that I started exploring just to discover my strength. And I like to see myself as a jack of all trades, the master of some.
I thought you were going to say it.
A master of some. So, yeah, I think those spaces, especially arts, I was a brilliant student in school and all that. All those things kind of built an ecosystem for me and also created a safe space for me to affirm myself, because the biggest battle with any form of infirmity is what goes on within. You can either choose to go through a journey of self-pity or pull yourself up and be able to navigate through life. So that's what happened. I think high school was kind of the epitome of Richard in terms of really, really establishing that identity. Quite early in high school, I really started doing music as a semi-professional career. I was always organizing shows in high school and singing, raising bands and singers. So we would host big talent shows that would attract students from all over Kigali and high schools. And I feel like it shattered a lot of the disabilities and brought up the abilities. I keep telling people I'm not disabled, I'm enabled otherwise. Your perception of disability and my perception of disability are different, because ultimately we have some form of disabilities as human beings. Some show physically, some don't show. So now you have to deal with them, and we deal with them differently. So yeah, and I would say that I am, with that, what motivated me and what pushed me through life and what pushes me through life today is I want to be a contributor to this world in one way or the other, because we are placed here for a reason. And it's just a matter of time that we discover that. And sometimes it takes a lifetime. But the truth is you're walking towards that anyway. And so that's the journey I'm on. And I don't want sympathy to be the way I earn what I have to do. So sometimes, not sometimes, I just want to live basically. And if ever I feel, and from anything, if I feel like I did earn my way through things, but it's either the way people perceive me or somebody perceived me, I'll always push that back and be like, this is not mine. I want to earn it before I get there. If you think you're going to give it to me because you've seen some sort of shakiness, then that's the wrong motivation. I'm talking about a lot about that space because it really shaped a lot of the resilient nature in me, the motivation to do things that are beyond me, and the things that are not just, hey, it's about you, Richard, but rather just working towards leaving a legacy and making an impact on people, and live a life that's meaningful.
Yeah, I mean, incredible story, man, and I mean, definitely inspiring for sure. I think it touches on something that I think I've been learning over the last 2 years now. Mm-hmm. And it's something that I talk to with a lot of my friends, mm-hmm. which is this notion, not even just my friends, a lot in like the business world as well, even in the work that I do, which is, trying to get more people into jobs, mm-hmm. From university and stuff. And I get to meet a lot of, let's say, students or job seekers who always say, hey, I've been applying here, I can't get a job. And one thing that I've started learning, at least, and I think it's entrepreneurship that really taught me this, is you have to learn how to take matters in your own hands. Mm-hmm. Like the sooner you realize that no one is coming to save you, mm-hmm. right? And basically the lesson there is I have to shape my own destiny. I am the only one who's responsible for this, mm-hmm. right? The sooner you realize that, a lot of things in your life change because you get off this victim, mentality of like, somebody has to help me, somebody mm-hmm. needs to help me. And you start realizing I am the only one who can help myself, mm-hmm. and I'm the only one who's supposed to help myself. Mm-hmm. And I think that makes you a very mentally strong person, definitely. And it shapes you a lot in whatever you do next because, you basically just stop, worrying so much about, I wasn't born in a rich family, maybe I will never be rich, or I didn't have this, like, these guys are doing this because of this. Like, true. Cool. You know that now. What are you going to do about it? You can't change it. You can't change what has happened. What are you going to do about that with that? And I mean, it seems like a very brutal lesson of life, but I feel like anyone who can go through that becomes a much stronger person and more resilient, definitely. And it helps you a lot in a lot of things. And
it also changes our perception towards especially extending generosity or a helping hand to people.
Yeah.
I'm a bit harsh to, let's say, seeing a crippled person begging on the street because I relate to some extent, not the full extent, to some extent with their situation. Now, what I'm interested in is not putting a coin in their basket, but I want to know the background story and how we can help beyond the obvious, because that's a short-term help you're giving to this person, but they need something that will take them out of that street. So the question is always, what do you like to do? Or what was your dream? Let's get into the root of things and try and understand people from a place where we can actually enable them to see their capabilities and some of the hidden gifts that they can kind of nourish and grow and be able to be self-reliant and self-sustained. So I rarely put a coin in their hand. If I have time, I'll have a chat with them. Yeah. If really it's an emergency, then I'll go the route of giving that. But I keep challenging my friends, hey, let's not rush into giving them a coin. Let's try and understand them from their point of view, and also give them a perspective of life that they want somebody to give them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's the same proverb about the fish, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you know. But yeah, man, you're an inspiration, man, to a lot of us. So take me through. Okay, so you have this big passion of music. Are you a good singer?
Oh yeah, I sing. I'm a fairly good singer.
Yeah. So you have this big passion of music in high school.
Yes.
So you finish high school. What happens then? How do you choose what to follow in terms of professional education, let's say?
So it was a rebellious move. If I go back to O level, that's senior 3.
Yeah.
That's usually where you're supposed to pick your majors and before you even enter university. I'm from a medical background. The family. My dad is a medical doctor. By profession, I'm a firstborn. So most of the times the expectations are you're gonna follow through the footprints of your dad and become a doctor.
Yeah.
But like I said, from the get-go, my aspirations were very artistic and less maybe scientific. So I wasn't gonna take it. Now we had that conversation before I selected my major. It was like, oh, biochemistry, oh, mathematics and physics. And he kept pushing for biochemistry. But just to rebel, it's not that I was the best in math and physics. I was like, okay, if you want sciences, I'm going to do mathematics and physics. I found myself there. I went through it as hard as it was. And then came time to pick my university major. Like I said, I was drawing, doing music. So some of the options, the options that I felt like I had on the table was I was seeing myself as a fine art professional or an architect, or else get into music production and career, whatever was there for me to consume. Now, I'm young, but not so young. So those days, I feel like today, universities locally have options for people. Not as many as we would love, but there's still options that we didn't have then. Architecture, for example, was just starting up in KIST. So there was no proof of concept. I wasn't going to be a guinea pig.
Exactly.
I had aspirations to study abroad, but that was also, being a firstborn, you kind of stay very realistic. You're like, okay, I don't want to stretch my parents' pockets and all that. So whatever comes my way, I'll take. I was fortunate to get the government scholarship for public university this year. And I was given computer engineering.
Yeah.
So already I landed in that space by accident. Computer engineering, I battled with it for some times. I even asked for a transfer. I was like, okay, if they've given me computer engineering, maybe I should try and apply for architecture. But they ended up giving me computer science in the University of Rwanda instead. And I was like, okay, I'm stuck with this. Let me go for it. I enjoyed playing with computers for as long as I remember. My dad bought his first computer, and we were the users at home. And so I get into computer science. I'm very, very introspective as a person. So whenever I start a new journey, I just want to make sense of it. And the first question I started asking myself, how does this link into the things I'm deeply passionate about? It didn't make a lot of sense right away, but I was like, okay, I'll go through this and eventually I'll find my niche. So when I started going to class, I hated my first class because they were teaching me things I was already familiar with. today we're going to teach you how to switch on and off a computer, the fundamentals, basically. I'm like, really? This is what we learn in university? But I knew where it was headed, but I started hating the classes before they even showed me the meat of the whole thing. So I went on a journey to really, really consume a lot of online content. And then I came across this Google opportunity. They had a program that was spearheaded by their office in Kenya, an ambassadors program. And they are recruiting different students from universities to kind of become representatives of their brand, but also equip the community with some of the cool tools that were coming up, G Suite, Google Maps, and a bunch of other things. I jump on board. Fortunately, they took me on, and we started discovering with a bunch of ambassadors from across the continent. So we traveled to Uganda, Kenya, and all those cities. They equip us with a lot of tools, and one of the things that stood out was how they branded themselves as a company. Every product had a specific identity, and you felt like there was some thoughtfulness in the things. And I started chatting with Googlers that would join those events, and they exposed me to the product space in tech. I was like, oh, this is art. And I fell in love with it. I started doing a lot of research. I was like, okay, I want to be a product designer. I think one of the first people I started following right away was Johnny Ive, the guru at Apple, just getting into his mind. The guys like Duarte from Google who came up with some design philosophies that were quite exciting at the time. So it just became what I wanted to do, and I was obsessed with it. I started learning stuff with graphic design first, and then I really wanted to see how I can translate all the creative spaces, all the creative things I was learning with a computer into actually building, designing software, and not necessarily building software, because those are two different things. So that's how it starts. And eventually, when I landed my first job, it was a conversation with a friend. First job, I guess I can call it a first job. We were chatting, Clarice is up, hey. We were chatting, and she talks about this dream about really designing great products and stuff. It became really appealing. At that time, I was torn in between either going for an internship at Google or working with this startup that was actually figuring things out.
I think the answer is obvious.
Yeah, the answer is obvious, right? But I guess I like the hard way. So I was like, working for a startup is actually quite exciting because I can mess up things and not feel like, So that's how I ended up with Hey. I started as a creative, doing a mix of graphic work and some UI, UX, and eventually the journey begins there in tech.
Yeah.
But like I said, it was really, really a journey of trying to find my niche in a space that I was not necessarily passionate about. And it made a lot of sense. And here I am, tens of years in the game, and I still love it.
When you discover that you could build products, then that element of art made sense, right? It's like, I can still do art in this computerized, let's say, industry. Someone that I really follow, the CEO of Airbnb, who talks a lot about the importance of design and building a tech product, but also just building a company in general, right? And I just want to understand it from you. So you've been doing this for a number of years. You've worked on a number of different products with different startups. Why do you think design is important in designing and building a product? Right. For example, let's look at it from the standpoint of a back-end engineer. Back-end engineer will be like, yeah, if something looks nice, like, people don't care about it looking nice. People care about it, doing the job, right? If I can just transact, people will get over the fact that it doesn't look nice, or maybe like the user experience is not nice, just as long as it gets the job done, right? Because, for example, now, if we look at the first computers, right, the way they were built, and we look at the computers now, we're like, there's so much that has been done from the user interface, user experience standpoint, design and everything. But back then, it could just do the job, right? And in a way, it was designed for that era. So I just want to understand the importance of design in terms of building great products.
Yes. A big question, and this could start a whole debate, because for the longest time, engineers have worked in a space where they feel like, okay, designers and product managers and product people are nice to have, but they're dispensable.
I think that's what I'm trying to get to. Many companies don't have a design department, right?
Yeah.
And one could say, yeah, they still work. But what do you believe from a product designer standpoint?
Yes. If it was that simple to build products, it could have been as simple as also just implementing some kind of Me Too kind of things, because, if Amazon did it, why can't I build the same e-commerce platform? And it works, But the truth is, behind every great product that we see here, there is some human-centeredness to it that we tend to ignore. And that's where a lot of work is happening. We don't build things because we love to build, You don't build sophisticated things because you're the baddest engineer, because it might be sophisticated for you, but it's gonna get complex for a layman, right?
Yeah.
Now, how do you reconcile the world where your ability is actually addressing a specific niche need? What differentiates Amazon from eBay is there, right? And the experience will speak to that aspect. And you realize that it's really there's a thin line between what one is doing and what the other is doing. That basically speaks a lot on the philosophy and the psychology behind the user they're trying to build for. And the work that has to happen is, do we understand who this user is at the core? And do we understand how they navigate through this space that we're trying to create for them, or this solution that we're trying to bring forward to solve a problem? And we also understand the actual problem that we're solving, because Amazon and eBay are not solving the same problem, right?
They're not?
At the core, the obvious thing is these are e-commerce platforms.
Exactly.
Yeah. But if you talk to Bezos and whoever the other is, they will tell you we're not solving the same problem. And they're probably right, because they've approached it on different angles, and they are also reaching a specific target, which actually is a confirmation that at the core, they're not solving the same problem. And we have many businesses and products out here that seemingly are the same. But when you assess their audience, you realize they are totally different audiences that they're targeting, and the users that they're solving for. So I feel like that's where we come in. There's a lot that goes into just understanding that space of the user, the psychology of the user, and being able to translate that now into humane experience.
Yeah.
So you can't. There's no trade-off for that. Technically, so it's important for designers and engineers to work hand in hand to be able to kind of bridge that gap and ensure that, hey, it could be sophisticated and have no users, or we do this and enable it to reach the audience we want to reach. So now it goes into the details of what is how do we perceive experience for this user? How do we enable them to navigate into this space in the most simplistic way? We have psychology, like from a UI perspective, we have psychology behind the colors we use. For example, if I'm selling food and I use a blue color, it's probably not going to trigger the anger that somebody should have by looking at your product.
Yeah.
We use red, for example, for a food product for a very specific reason. If I'm selling a luxurious item, there's a specific color that I'm going to use, maybe black or, So you realize that there's a lot that goes into the products, the end products that you've designed, that an engineer will probably miss out on. Yeah. I worked with an engineer back at Hey, and whenever he would attempt to be creative with his UI, it was just dramatic. You see purple, green, red, and all sorts of shapes, and that creates a lot of distraction. And ultimately, the backend is working perfectly, but it sucks at everything for the user. So there's a lot of complementarity in the work we do. So it's just important to understand why a designer or a product person and how they come into feeding into what engineers do. So
yeah, I mean, a lot of people when they hear product design, they're like, oh yeah, graphic designer, right? That's what you mean. Like colors and posters and stuff like that. That's what you mean, right? They don't really, get the
experience part.
Exactly. And from you, I'm understanding that it's deeper than that. It's, on the user research and, so you can understand the user experience. As a product designer, what is a product that you're like, this product is really well designed? Not from a, visual standpoint, but from a, when you look at it, you're like, okay, a designer really thought about the experience.
Or stumbled. I like to use Google search, man. It's the silliest thing. I don't know how to talk about sophisticated products we have there. Google search kind of nailed it in a sense that they hid everything, all the complexities from the user. And that's just fascinating how we've grown accustomed to it. We use it on a day-to-day, and it has kind of now created other sub-products behind, and all these sub-products are actually powered by the engine. Whether you go on YouTube, whether you go on Gmail, and the foundation is really their search engine. But for the user, it was as simple as type, click search. And every time I'm designing an experience or working with our design team, it's always the question is always, how can we keep this as simple and intuitive for our user as possible? There are definitely a lot of great products out there, but Google is just an example of a not overthought design, because every innovator, I think, gets trapped into sophistication a lot. We all fall into that trap where you want to show off your capabilities, and most of the times it ends up becoming an overkill. But the simpler, the better. They say that if it's invisible, then you got it right. So like whenever your product does not raise any, how do I get here, there, then you know that you've kind of nailed it. So yeah, that's always the vision. If people are not talking about it, then it's not a problem.
Yeah. But then again, I think Going back to the artist, because I do believe that a lot of product designers, are kind of artists in a way. You have to be artistic. But there's this thing that they talk about both in art, but also in startups. For example, in startups, Paul Graham talks about this, build a product for yourself, right? Build it for yourself. And then if you find people who solve a problem for yourself, for example, right? And then eventually you will probably find other people who probably face the same problem, and then it will become a solution for them. If you look at Google as well, it was the same thing. If you ask the founders, they just wanted to solve a problem for them because they faced that problem. They're like, yeah, how do you search stuff? How do you find stuff? It's all over the place. And they're like, oh, let's create something where you can find stuff. And then other people found it cool, and that's how it became big. Right? So in a way, these guys, all these successful guys, were creating stuff not for people, but for them, to solve a problem for them. If you look at artists, they also say the same thing, where they're like, if you're going to make a song, make it for yourself. Like, don't listen, if you try to make a song for everybody, it's going to be too commercial. Maybe it might become a hit, but, other artists are not going to really respect the art that went into it. But once you create something for yourself, it might actually become even a bigger hit because 3 people might really be obsessed about the song. But they're like, I just feel you. I just understand you. I see you. And it's another thing when it comes to designing products, right? Where you're like OpenAI, right? I think Sam Altman talked about it when they released ChatGPT the first time. He was like, yeah, we didn't really invest a lot in like our design. It just gets the job done. It's like search, put in your question, done. You see this, it looks even more like a backend, like for backend engineers,
Definitely.
right? For us users, we're used to like, white pages and like things, different colors. And they're like, nope, kept it minimalistic, but 100 million users in one day.
Works.
Just because it gets the job done, right? But also because I believe there's an element of like, how do we use it internally and then give it out to people? So I just want to understand that from standpoint of product design. How much should we be going with the intuition of, let's solve a problem for ourselves. Maybe 2-3 people might like it, and then they take it from, and they will adapt to the way that it is, right? Rather than us saying, how do you like it to be? Where should we put the sign up? So, what do you think about that?
So it is highly likely most of the times that the problems we're solving on a day-to-day are also problems we face ourselves. But there are instances where you can't relate with the problem, but either way you have to solve it, right? I agree. I certainly agree with solving for self, even from an entrepreneurship perspective, because the urge that boils within is usually something that frustrates you that eventually is going to come out as a solution, right?
Yeah.
And I also feel like it's even more genuine for the recipients because there's a story. There's a story behind it. Just think about a song, a dramatic song. People like Adele have, or Sam Smith. They've become very famous because of the vulnerability in their lyrics, and most of the times they're actually telling stories that they've gone through and all, and somehow those things are actually working for people. And so, yes, let's we can navigate through a space where we're solving for self, but most of the times when we enter big corporates, they already have a preconceived, there's already a preconceived idea of a problem that's being solved. And most of the times, the bigger we grow, the least we can relate with some of these problems. That's why it's important for us that's why we talk a lot about empathy and putting ourselves in the user's shoes, because you're putting yourself in the user's shoes because you can't relate with that.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not in those shoes, right? So, which means either way, it's important to be in touch with the reality you're going for. If it's yours, well and good, then it gives you a lot of capital to start with. The truth is, research is expensive. right? But it's an investment worthwhile because ultimately it enables you to solve the problem the right way. But if you already have some insights on the problem you're trying to solve, then it helps you move faster. For example, you're able to prototype a product very fast and be able to test it on your own. But another danger with you being part of the, you being you leaving the problem is the biases it comes with, and you also need to kind of filter what is a bias and what is a real thing that I'm going through that's a challenge that enables me to actually solve the problem the right way. Because if you don't have a proper funnel between what you consider that legit problem you're solving and what your preconceived perception of the problems are, then it's dangerous. You end up building a product for yourself.
Exactly.
For yourself, right? And it's also a journey of growth because you have to enable yourself to grow into the problem. And the only way you grow into the problem is also bringing in different sample sizes of sample stories and not just use yourself as a benchmark to what you're building. But if you want to prototype fast, then you being in the shoes of you being in that space then gives you a lot of credibility to start with. And eventually, as the product goes out, a lot more will emerge, and you'll be able to even solve the problem in bigger ways.
Yeah. What's the current product you're working on right now?
So I said I'm a jack of all trades, right? We didn't mention this earlier, but I'm currently a senior product manager at Embo, and I also run a food venture, Ballistic Burgers. So we can talk about either angle. But if I was to speak
just of Embo, and then
if I was to speak of Embo, we probably know Embo Gov as a product. Embo has been around for 10 years now, and it's a product and an entity that's solving a unique problem, or that has a niche, I guess. We are providing easy access to public services, which is quite an interesting space to navigate because of the fragmented nature of the users we're dealing with.
Yeah.
It could be as obvious as we're solving for the Waturage or the citizens of Rwanda. But when you sit in the background of these products, you realize that it's much more complex than that. There are probably 100 shades of citizens that you need to think about for you to be relevant. And you also need to find a space where you come up with a product that converges and speaks to everyone, all the layers of the users. So our Gov platform is basically where all these public services, especially the most sought after services for now, are accessed by citizens, whether it's passport application, paying for your fines, your birth certificate, your criminal record, you name it, is accessible. You go there, you pay for the service, and whatever output is supposed to come out of it, you get. And the dream is basically providing citizens with a zero-trip, zero-paper experience. Right now, zero-trip, zero-paper is partially met as a dream because we still have a lot of institutions where the experience goes from online and you still have to do some activities offline. You either have to drive to the office to get the output or provide additional information. And ideally, we should get into a world where at the comfort of your home, you're able to get any service, any public service without moving and blinking.
Yeah.
So now that product has had a long journey of growth. And basically the space we're navigating through, myself and the big chunk of our team is is to create a model that's even much more scalable. For the past 10 years, we've been able to onboard around 100 plus services for the government, but the pipeline is much bigger than that.
How many are left? Because in my head, I always think that, yeah, it's 100, right? You guys are done.
Believe it or not, these are the most sought after services, but there are smaller services that are provided on a day-to-day, but you realize that they're actually taking up a lot of operational time to the institutions that are providing those services, and there are ways to optimize their resources and enable them to be more efficient in the back. So we're getting a backlog of now those small services. They really want to be digital, you know, most of these institutions, and focus on, okay, how do we dream bigger and tap into new spaces and solve new problems for the citizens. And we want to enable them that to equip them with such tools. So we want to build Gov at scale now. And what that means is basically, for example, it should be much simpler to onboard a service than it is right now. On average, it's taking us 2, 3, 4, and even 6 months. For some institutions, it has taken longer to be able to get a service accessible by citizens because the experience has been rather bespoke for most of these institutions we are onboarding. So some sort of DIY experience, if I may call it, in onboarding. Tomorrow, if an institution is thinking of putting a service online, they shouldn't come to our engineering team. That's the dream. They should be able to get into a space where they can configure that service and push it online and announce this to their audience that they can now access the service. So it's an exciting space to be in right now, and that's really what we're pushing for. And not only it will enable us to scale fast and be able to kind of push all these services through the funnel, but we can also start thinking about new untapped spaces as an entity and be able to think about new problems to solve, whether it's for the government and even the private sector. So, and most of these things are also a today dream. It's not even very futuristic. Because if you're familiar with the national strategic goals where the government has the 7-year strategic goals, they are due this year. And one of the goals stipulates that Rwanda should be public service should be fully digital. I mean, all public services should be fully digital come end of this year. So we want to be part of that journey and be at the center of taking our country to that promised land and move on to the next big thing.
So, I mean, incredible, man. Please save us a lot of the, save us a lot of the having to stand in queues and call 55 different people trying to get something done. Definitely very useful what you guys are working on, and we're all behind you guys. Cool. It's COVID.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, COVID just hit. You're sitting at home, working from home. What happened?
Oh, yeah, I was... COVID was quite an interesting season, man. People took a break. As much as work was going on virtually or remotely, I feel like it gave us some level of rest and that ability to have perspective. Or maybe in the back of our mind, we thought, ultimately, everyone is going to die or something. But I won't say that I was thinking that deep. I was just minding my business and resting. But one of the things we did a lot during COVID, you saw the trend. Everybody was cooking. Everybody would post a reel and showing us their kitchen and the meal they made during the day or the night. So, and people were learning how to cook, but for me, it was just routine because I do a lot of cooking at home. So it's one of the things. Like I said, art is white, and art is creation. It's creating, right? So I gravitate a lot around anything that enables me to start from like maybe something and then see an end result that's different from the input. And the kitchen is the same. So I'm also passionate about the kitchen. And while cooking, I was also craving things during COVID, and I would make them. And like anyone else, I would post. So an evening, I just decided I was craving burgers. And made a burger for myself and the housemates. And long story short, I post on my status, and a friend reaches out. They're like, "Oh man, what are you doing to us? Send some." So the journey of Ballistic started like that. I asked the guy what they wanted. I already had my buns in the pantry and a bunch of other stuff ready. Make those burgers and send them their way. It was a bulk of 14, I think. And I wasn't expecting any payment from that because, business with friends, they don't work. So I make the burgers and send them his way. Before I knew, a video pops up my notifications, and it was the whole family. He was recording every single one of them, giving it reviews.
Yeah,
I was so excited. Yo, this burger slaps. So good, so good. One of the guys was like, "Yo, if you start a business, I'll fund it."
Yeah.
I think it's the most impulsive decision I've ever made in my life. I was like, hell yeah, let me start it.
Yeah.
Like just like that. Huh?
Yeah.
Of course, in the back of my head, while I was doing that, another friend reaches out, and they're like, "Hey, Richie, a friend told me you have burgers."
Waiting to be sold.
Yeah. Can you send some and tell me how much I owe? Then that was a different thing that came up. So already the video kind of convicted me, which I normally don't do. I tend to be an overthinker in most of the things I do because I want to think through the journey. So when that question popped, the how much question, I realized it was getting serious. So I reached out to this friend of mine who's been in culinary. I was like, "How do you price a product?" So she sends me this whole manual. It was probably one of her books in school, but it was very, very useful. I spent the night crunching the numbers, breaking down my recipes and the portions and stuff.
Yeah.
And eventually I also benchmark. I look around, okay, how much is this guy selling the burger for? And okay, boom. I didn't overthink it. It was really prototyping at and she also asked for what do you offer? I mean, which products do you have? Basically, I was like, okay, I've done my math. This is the price. These are the products I'm able to provide in my oven, small kitchen oven. So I started with 2 products at that time. It was a cheeseburger, a classic cheeseburger, and a crispy chicken burger. And that's how the journey begins. And from that day onward, every day of the year, at least whenever we're open, we got customers.
Yeah.
Do you want us to get into the whole story?
Yeah.
You may ask, at what point did I actually realize it was a business? Because again, because it was impulsive, the idea was, okay, let the hype go. Yeah. All these are friends, so they're just doing me a favor. Or I can serve them, and eventually after 3 weeks, this will go away and I'll move on to my usual business. But the more I pushed, without even spreading the word, the more people were coming to us. And at some point, maybe a month in, we started getting unfamiliar names and faces reaching out. I think at that time, MTN also had like a cap on how much money you can receive on your, how many transactions you can receive on your mobile, on your personal mobile money account. It became kind of a limitation because somebody would tell me they've paid and I wouldn't see the payment.
Yeah.
And when I asked, they told me, hey, you need a code. And I was like, what does it require to get a code? You need a business registration certificate. Okay, I was like, now this is a different ball game. Because before I registered this thing, I really need to know why I'm doing this. And the obvious things that came to mind, or the things that felt like would push me forward. One, I struggle a lot with menus at restaurants. Menus are very, very big, if I may say. And I just want somebody to give me 3-4 items I can choose from, as simple as that. And it's fast. And the truth is, whenever I go to a restaurant, I always default back to the same thing over and over, which tells me either this is what they're good at, and most of the times you realize the clients are ordering for the same thing. I'm not saying that that's always the case, but predominantly when you go to restaurants, the most popular items are probably the most reliable items in terms of quality, freshness, and even how fast they're able to produce it. So, which means I shouldn't even trust all those other things that are there. So why keep 40, 50, 100 items on your menu if you can keep it as lean as possible and make it easy for a consumer to navigate through it and make a choice fast? That was one. The second was experience. The experience being why, generally, and it's also something that we are constantly having to work with. We are past the honeymoon phase, and we also get a lot of heat on the quality of the service and how people interface with us. I wanted to change the narrative around service in Rwanda, particularly. Whenever an expat comes here, they're like, Rwanda is beautiful, but the service sucks.
Yeah.
Hurts me. It breaks my heart. I'm like, no, this is not how we should be defined. So I just wanted to play a part and create what I call a corrective emotional experience for the consumers, and create the most seamless experience for the user and enable them to go through the ordering process and get their products hassle-free. That was another one. And then the third was what I call value for money. Many of the times I went and ordered for an item and you pay, you feel like you're being ripped off. So value for money encompasses a lot of things. It's not just maybe the quantity, it's the quality and the consistency on the quality and the price that you're paying for that. For that whole thing. When you reconcile all those things, do you feel like it deserved what you paid for? It might not necessarily be the cheapest product, but whatever you're paying, does it feel like it's worth it?
Yeah.
So those were the 3 pillars. Like right away when I was thinking through, okay, what am I solving right now and what will keep me going? Those were the things. So I relied on the things I knew best, which was technology. I also knew that I didn't need, I wasn't able to venture full on and splash money on something I wasn't sure I was going to work. So I was like, what is the easiest way to start? People have already started ordering through my personal WhatsApp number. Can we keep keep this going the same way. And we entered the WhatsApp business space like that and created a whole journey on the whole customer journey there. Tested it out, it worked out, and basically the technology became the foundation of what we were doing. And beyond that, COVID presented us with an opportunity that suggested that brick and mortar was not necessarily the future. And it was exciting for me because I was like, I can literally create 100 restaurants in the back and feed people without having to own a real estate or like buy fancy furniture where people will sit. So we are really into like a mobile fast food space as Ballistic Burgers. And the future of Ballistic Burgers is probably and most likely going to be in the mobile space, and less of maybe you'll hardly or ever see a physical restaurant that's called Ballistic Burgers. At least my senses and my guts tell me it's not worth going that route if we can experiment and explore this space more and be innovative around the mobile space and be able to serve the current and future consumer in that manner. So yeah, we've been at it since 2020. We're turning 4 this year, and it's been a journey of growth and a lot of learnings.
4 years, man.
Almost.
Yeah, one could think that it's like one or 2 years. What makes a great burger?
What makes a great burger? It's up to the consumers, honestly, to decide, because they also are the biggest judges and critics of which burger is the best in town. But so we claim to have gourmet burgers. They are heavily handmade. That's what the fancy word really means. Our burgers are homemade. That's the experience. That's how I would call it.
Yeah,
it's a homemade experience, and we are very meticulous at every item that goes into it. Whether it's the bun, someone would tell you a good bun makes a great burger. So we wanted to own that process. Instead of sourcing for the buns, we wanted to make sure that we create a bun that we test and are able to have quality control on and be able to produce consistently for our consumers. So bun is one. The patty. So people approach patty in different ways. Some will infuse a patty with different flavors, and others will keep it as raw as it gets and just season it with salt and pepper. So that also is really up to the consumers to judge, but the juicier the better, I guess, because most of the times when somebody tells you they like your burger, they will tell you it was juicy.
Yeah.
And if the patty is juicy, then you've nailed it, and some good balance in the seasoning obviously doesn't hurt. And then you have the toppings, which is where most people get creative. Some have layers of lettuce, tomato, and like just the thing that gives a perception that it's a healthy meal.
Is that why?
A good balance.
Is that why those things are?
No, it's not it's not the motive. It's not the motive, but I would say, the topping is really a space for one to explore. For example, some of our burgers have corn in it, and it was quite a different experience for the consumer in the beginning. They were like, "Oh, corn in a burger! I never thought about it, but I like it."
Yeah,
And then you have the sauce. Obviously, you have to get the sauce right. A burger is the most simple food item, I feel. So the only way you can mess it up is if the key items, the sauce, the meat, and the buns are not gotten right. Then be rest assured that it's going to be a horrible experience for a consumer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very interesting, the food space, right? A lot of people All right. If you look at the food space, a lot of people get scared about that kind of business, right? Because they're like, oh my God, I need sophisticated ovens. I need, a chef who has a PhD in making that specific product. You know what I mean? Like to be able to offer people a product that they're willing to pay at this specific price point. But then you seem to have created, a food business, right? With what you had, but also, again, you are, what you could say, you had what we could say the founder market fit. So you had the technical know-how to actually produce. So you didn't really need external people in that, in the beginning. But what would you say is the step-by-step process of creating a food business? Now that you look at it, 4 years in the business, what would you say would be the steps of creating a food business if somebody's looking at creating one without a lot of capital?
I think I would still, if I was to start all over again, I would still probably go the same route. So we allowed it to be really, really organic up to now, because we haven't raised any fund to take it to the next level. And I think most of the times it's not even just the food space, but in general, to start anything, it's important to look at the basics. What do you need at the most basic level to really minimize the cost of starting? So for me, it was as simple as I already have an oven that I use for my meals. Let me experiment with this. And when it gets tested beyond its capacity, then it's a signal that I need to now venture into the next layer of growth. So with everyone trying to start, I feel like most people I know in the food space, it was probably I was feeding my family, and then in family events, I would be the one catering. Yeah. And then before I knew, the friends of the family started asking me to cater for their baby shower, bridal shower, and all those small events. It's a very organic way to grow, and you're using your direct people as a baseline to actually experiment with whatever you're doing, whether it's good or not. They're not necessarily always the harshest of critique. Yeah. But if people keep coming back to you, then you know that you're onto something. And whatever feedback you're taking or collecting, make good use of it as well, and refine the product over time. So for me, it starts with what you have. Yeah. It does not cost you a thing. So fun fact is, with Ballistic, I've never put a coin from my own pocket. Really? In that business.
That's interesting.
If one could argue that the oven was bought,
that was the investment.
That oven was depreciating anyways. But get it right. The point I'm trying to make here is, whatever I needed to get the business going, I didn't have to get it from my own pocket. I had to think creatively, or at least to think of different ways to go about it. And we started with a pre-order model. So you would basically forecast your eating and pay us for that.
Exactly.
And so you order the day before and we deliver the next day. What's happening there? You've paid for the input, which is basically what I need for me to produce your food. And it kind of also helped us know the kind of volume we needed to have in stock for us to supply that market. So there's zero hassle on, I don't know who's going to come my way today, so I need to buy extra stock. So you keep everything fresh because you already know you have X customers in the pipeline that have already paid, and whatever input you need, pay for it with the money they gave you. Yeah. And
what's a healthy margin on food items?
A healthy margin. I mean, it varies from a market to another. Right now, with a market like ours that was hit by inflation, if you take into account also your price point, because some food products are at the high end. If you go to most of these high-end restaurants, you're paying double the amount you're paying for my burger, for example, right? So their margin is much bigger. It might be much bigger, or if you take into account the cost of operation, then it's probably not as big. But what I've seen in this market, it fluctuates between maybe 45 to 65, if you stretch it, 65%. Those who are lucky, who are either overpricing or smart with how they manage their production, could go to higher ceilings.
Yeah. How many burgers are you selling on a monthly basis?
Thousands now.
Thousands?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It's big. I mean, it's growing, but we have bigger goals. So the thing, like I said, we've been very, very modest about our approach to go to market. I feel like there's a big market that's just waiting to even know about Ballistic. Not many people know. Yeah. Believe it or not, you might know that our market share is still small. If you take into account the sample size, I mean, of the target market.
Yeah.
I mean, not the sample size. If you take into account the potential market within the city alone, that we're not even talking about expansion. So we still have to be a lot more aggressive. We need to figure out ways that we can balance between the demand and our ability to supply within our set promised time. So our modesty in marketing is primarily driven by the motivation to really, really nail the operations and the processes that drive the production, because there are things that you realize you have to tweak. At every milestone of growth, you become very, very stretched, and now you need to adjust a lot of things. And given the growth curve is still quite linear, not yet exponential.
Yeah.
So that's what excites me about this business is we've managed to sustain it for 4 years, but the potential is not even yet what we have right now. The dangers of also being too organic for too long is disruption, right? Today, we've seen more players emerging in that space, and we also need to continue to differentiate ourselves. And obviously, our focus is less on competition and more on what value are we bringing to these consumers that are coming to us, and how can we continue to add even more value. But
yeah. I mean, that's thing. Kind of ties into something I was very curious about, which is, one could think that, burgers, restaurants have burgers, right? That's what somebody would think about, right? Before venturing into a business like this. They're like, restaurants, if I need a burger, I know a restaurant that has a burger, right? Almost every one of them has a burger. Yes. And so the one thing that I just wanted to understand is, now that you look at it for 4 years into the business, what do you think was the untapped market that, by accident you ended up serving? But also at the same time, what opportunities do you still see that are still not tapped into in the food business?
Sure. So the thing that resonated with a burger is the convenience and the comfort aspect. So convenience, in a sense. So that's just generally why we exist as Ballistic. We're selling convenience, right? Whether it's that corporate person who's at work, busy during lunch, they want a quick meal to grab. Or a bachelor who's going home and they don't they probably don't even have the utensils. So you're kind of doing the kitchen job for them. And gladly, a family on a weekend that just need rest and enjoy each other's company without having to feel like they have to go through the chores of making any meal. So it's a bunch of use cases in terms of the opportunity that kind of drove us there. But we also looked at the burger as the comfort food by design and by default. The ease of production and everything that enables us to go through that chain the fastest we can. So it resonated in that manner. But another motivation and thing that I kept thinking about as a creator is how do I infuse the Rwandan identity into this meal that's predominantly Western? It's America. I mean, so that's also one of the spaces we want to tap into more, in as much as some of these products that we've been able to roll out have some of that signature. It hasn't come out yet fully. We want to experiment a lot with the sauces and bring in Rwanda. What are these things that kind of resonate with this context? And wherever we go, as we expand, we want to be now really personalizing that experience to the context we're in. The next question was,
what are the opportunities that you see untapped into the food business?
Yes, the opportunities. So I'll talk about opportunities from a place of challenges. Some of the hardest places to navigate, probably here. I don't know about other countries, but being a landlocked country, most of the inputs in your product are actually imports, right? Maybe the fresh produce is what you're getting from here. And whenever the supply chain is broken for one reason or the other, you're affected heavily. The cost of goods is going to spike overnight. Today you wake up, you buy cheese at 1,000, and tomorrow you buy it at 10,000 and still sell the product at the same price.
Because it's hard to explain to customers in 24 hours that, hey.
Yeah, things are changing. So there's a big opportunity in the food manufacturing space. A simple thing like the packaging we're using is imported. The pepper wraps and the cheese we're using, the condiments that we're using for the sauces and a bunch of other things. So sometimes you wake up and you're like, I just want to own the food chain because of these pains. But you realize you can only do so much,
Exactly.
So for anyone with a muscle, I think, who's trying to venture into the food space, if they can address some of those layers, it kind of now makes it easy for the retailers to now consume and be able to supply the markets at friendly prices. Because last year you saw how inflation was.
Yeah, it was really
it was on a hike.
Yeah.
And I think the food business was probably the most hit by that, because there was no way. At some point, I battled with the idea of changing prices, but I realized it's either you sink or you kind of find something that works for you and the consumers ultimately.
Yeah. But how do you deal with that kind of situation where, overnight the prices go up and you still get orders and people trying to buy? Do you just say to your team, hey, we're just going to keep it the same price? Like, how do you navigate that, and for how long can you keep doing that?
So pricing is a science in itself. There's a lot of parameters you need to take into account for you to price, and you don't price for the present. You need to understand the dynamics of inflation and the dynamics of of the entire ecosystem that affects your product in one way or the other, for you to be able to kind of come up with a price that, first of all, is stable, because most of the times even the seller wants to create some sort of stability, because you're then able to project, accurately for your growth. So all parameters static, normally I believe that you can either focus your energy in how do you now grow exponentially by different strategies. It's not just, actually, pricing is not even your strategy for growth. It shouldn't be. The primary strategy should be how do you convince more consumers to get into your product, because this is a business of economies of scale. Most of the times, the more consumers, the better. And if you've been smart at optimizing your production to really, really understand what goes into your production accurately and maintain that consistently, then you won't be surprised a lot by the margins fluctuations. So, yeah, for example, last year we pushed up until probably the end of the year, around October, September. But the thick of things was actually way earlier than that, when prices were just spiking. Potatoes were insanely high, and a bunch of other items that we were sourcing. So if you price smart, or at least at the best level of accuracy, then you're able to sustain that price for a long haul, at least a year or two. So the way I plan for our pricing is, let's after putting all these parameters in place, can this price go on up until maybe 15, 16 or 18 months without us having to feel like the world is crumbling? If we can go up to 2 years, well and good, but we haven't had that. The trend has shown us that at least within 18 months, you realize that you'll have to get into a place where you adjust your prices because of the nature of the economy. So for those who are smart, they just choose to spike the price. But I feel like it's not my way, because the product we're trying to create is and the product we're trying to create and the consumer behind that product is very price sensitive, and we are very mindful of that. Every adjustment you make, you know that you have to pay for it by losing some, in as much as maybe in the long haul, you regain some of those, but you also need to give them a new value proposition for them to kind of feel like they're getting value for money.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'm a strong believer that entrepreneurship is very interesting. If people who choose to venture into entrepreneurship, that experience in itself teaches you a lot of things about yourself, because your kind of like nature comes out into that experience, into that journey, and then it kind of shapes the kind of leader you are, the kind of entrepreneur you are, right? Many entrepreneurs have different philosophy of building the company, different philosophy of approaching the market, of building products, right? And it really comes out into entrepreneurship, because now it's your time to make that talent or whatever that is shine, but also your weaknesses come up. So what would you say are the things that you realize about yourself as an entrepreneur that comes into play when you're operating this business?
Yes. So one of the things you've read about, the 0 to 1, 1 to 100 kind of founder or entrepreneur. I feel like I believe I'm a 0 to 1. I enjoy starting, but I get bored very, very fast.
What bores you?
What bores me is once something is established, it becomes very routine and bureaucratic over time. So there's some level of predictability that kind of feels like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm good. I can hand this over. And I like to be in the spaces now where we are able to kind of think through, okay, what next, or get into something new. And this having started during COVID, I was also transitioning between jobs. And I was very, very keen on establishing a team and handing over some aspects of the process quite early in the business. I was in the kitchen in the beginning, right? I brought along some people, handed over the whole process. They owned it, and today they are much better at producing these burgers than I could. I was manning the customer experience at the start, and it was pretty cool that I handed over at some point. Some aspect of the operations, sourcing, managing the suppliers, the accounting. You know how startups work. You're basically playing all the roles at once. So at every point, it was just it would become very clear that I was bored and I wanted to hand it over. But beyond that, the idea of just empowering people and enable them to kind of own and have full ownership, I easily let go and delegate things.
Yeah.
I've realized it's just the way. It's something I've noticed with how I managed at Irembo and how I manage at Ballistic. I will trust you once we've gone through that journey and let you fly with things without me having to worry so much about what may happen. And what we end up doing is generally navigating through maybe some of the challenges that emerged and be able to address them. So that's an exciting space, right? Where we're looking at the challenges and how do we address them. So we have those check-in, for example, with the Ballistic team on a weekly, where we're just looking at what went right and what went wrong, and what new process do we create? What other approach could help us get there better? And then I just spend my time in the back dreaming and drawing stuff that might not materialize maybe in the next 3-6 months, but I know that they're somewhere in the journey.
Yeah. How big is the team right now?
We have a team of 16 people.
16 people, that's a lot of people, man.
It is.
When that must mean that the reason why I'm asking this is because it's something that is very challenging for a lot of leaders, right? I think when you start building a company for a long time, you start trying to really identify what is we talked about identifying your role and really understanding who you are in the organization that you're in and where you actually shine in the organization and why you're there, basically, right? And it's very interesting that you say that it's very easy for you to be able to let go, because a lot of entrepreneurs are not good at that, right? They believe that as soon as I do that, nobody's ever going to be able to do it better than me. It's going to diminish the value a little bit because they don't really understand the passion and they don't have that intrinsic, motivation and drive to make it the best experience as I would. Which is true still. Even if you delegate to people, technically you have to realize that they will not love it as you would, because if there's a better opportunity that really is 10 times better than whatever they're in, most of the time they might go. So that's just a reality you have to understand when you hire people. So I just want to understand that philosophy of being able to let go. When do you feel like somebody is able to do it good enough that I can sleep okay and say, okay, it's not the best, but does the job. I can trust you. I can do it better, but I can trust this to, for the customers not to notice that there was a difference between the burger that Richard made and the burger that this other person made. So when do you realize that? And this is not specific for maybe Ballistic, but like in your managerial role as well. When do you feel like, okay, they're ready to produce good enough?
So there's an aspect of hand holding that comes into play. But beyond that is how have you equipped them for success, right? And that's where processes come into place, into play. And for a business like the food business, it's easy to observe a pattern and kind of define what it is and now hand it over. So that's the exercise we do a lot. It's wherever there's a gap, we try to observe those patterns that are overarching and that are making us kind of not as efficient as we should be. And once that is established and defined, then we start going through some sort of play.
Yeah.
We exercise the muscle and it becomes a habit. And before you know, you don't have to be a genius to go through that.
Yeah.
Our customer journey has been primarily scripted. So you're just going by the script. And I feel like it sets someone for success when things are clear and defined from the get-go. Then they don't have to struggle through asking themselves multiple questions. And whenever you feel like now they've gotten the hang of things, maybe it's time for them to be challenged to go into other spaces. But I feel like it's very important to give them something to start with after you've given them that hand-holding, and also play that constant feedback role, very constructive feedback without going by the bush. If things are not working, let's assess this. If it's a character flaw, address it. If it's not changing, you have to do the needful.
Yeah.
But
experience.
Yeah. But generally, I would bet on defining processes to set someone up for success, and then be keen on seeing when they've outgrown the process and actually make them a sojourner in that journey. They can build new processes on top, or go into another role. And that's what I've been trying to do most of the time.
Yeah. Very interesting. I mean, for me, I think where that comes out is where I believe that somebody is ready to do it on their own. I don't have to handhold them, because I'm very, I'm quite like into the business too much. Like I look at details so much. And the point where I feel like somebody is ready to do it and I don't have to even question whatever they do is when I notice that they're able to innovate or be creative and do something that was not in the process that was, required. If you give somebody a task and they do it in their own way, I'm like, yes, that's what it is. That's the only thing I need. I want you to understand it, understand why we do it this way, but I want you to make it your own.
To make it your own.
Right? Improve it, make it better, try to do something different. I'm like, yes. So I like this approach of just giving people a mission or a goal. For example, if it's customer service, and say, how can Ballistic Burgers have the best customer service in the country? Like, that's your mission. That's your goal. I'm not going to tell you how you're going to get there, but I want you to get there. Right? And then you define how you're going to be able to achieve that. Is it by going to literally every restaurant, sitting down, taking notes of, okay, I noticed this. Okay, what can we do better? If you do that, please just achieve that goal. Because that's the only thing I want to be able to check in. Are we the best in customer service or not? Or not yet? Why? What are we missing? Now you have a clear job description, right? And I feel like that definitely helps you to feel like, okay, I know this person, they're going to face things that I've never faced myself, but they'll be able to figure it out themselves. They'll be able to be like, okay, this is a problem. I don't need to ask anybody. Let me innovate and figure out how to solve it. But very interesting.
You just brought up something and it reminded me. Obviously, the point on the problems they're facing are totally different from the ones I faced when I started. First of all, 80% of the people I was serving, I knew, right? So it was easy to converse with them and have that flow. But right now, they're dealing with hundreds of customers on a regular basis that have demands of their own, and rightfully so, right? And it gets more and more challenging every day. And the platform we're using is quite hectic when you're handling multiple customers. That's also another parameter. So it's important for you to empathize with them a lot and find them to that place and try to understand the ins and outs of what they're dealing with for you to be able to support them better. The hand-holding for us, one is the sensitivity, is actually due to the sensitivity of the space we're in, food and customer experience. We have zero tolerance to unhappy customers. That's the approach. So with that being said, it's important for you to set the expectations straight from the get-go. Now, giving it room for innovation is also a process of maturity. The nature of the people we are hiring are people who are either new on the job, the job market, or they've never operated in a food business, right? So that's also one aspect to consider. Depending on the level of expertise you're bringing on board, then you know how to manage the expectations. For some, giving them a long-term mission or a mid-term goal makes sense. For others, it's very ambiguous. So I've learned to communicate in very plain ways just to ensure that the person I'm talking to does not understand this to this wavelength because I've thought through this, I've embodied this, so it's easy for me to relate with it. But these people are on a journey, and let me help them get there. Now, fun fact, I remember. So our journey, the customer experience journey. It ended with thank you, right? Once we delivered and everything, and the customer has given us a feedback. And then one day, a client tells me, "Hey, I saw that you guys are sending us, we love you, So one of our customer experience person kind of edited the end. So like, okay, we've received your payment, thank you, we love you. So in the beginning, it was quite creepy for someone to receive that message from a business.
Yeah.
But then it became that signature. People would laugh about it, but you realize you're actually spreading love without knowing, and it became a thing. And I was like, oh hell yeah, let's keep it. So you'll be amazed by what people are able to do. I've seen that a lot with our kitchen, for example, staff. They're always coming up with ways to kind of cut down on the time for production and stuff. Yeah. So when you give autonomy, there's just a lot of ownership that comes with it. You just have to be ready to bear some consequences.
100%.
And deal with it in your own way and be able to move on.
Yeah. What's the future for Ballistic Burgers? Any thinking of jumping into other products or staying in the burger place and expanding? Where are you going?
So comfort food is wide. The burger space is still one we want to really, really position ourselves in. When we started, I would just navigate through social media. You always get, every once in a while, you get somebody tweeting, hey, where can I get a burger? When we started, obviously, you are nowhere to be found, right? They'll bring up names and you start aspiring to be like those. But I also knew that most of the players at that time were doing more than just burgers. And it was as simple as we want to get into a place where we're by default the burger reference for this land, and get into a place we can tap into other markets. So I think today you can make a case that if you ask for a burger place, Ballistic will emerge among probably the top 2 or 3 service providers, and that's already like a big step forward. Now, where are we going next? So, like I said, we are very interested into the mobile fast food space. There are many connotations to that space. Some talk about ghost kitchens and stuff in the in the food startup place. Realm. So we want to do a fusion of what we've been doing and be able to tap into other interfaces, be it events. Predominantly, we've experimented and explored some events in the past where you're basically bringing a mobile kitchen there and producing on spot and remove. You've heard of food trucks as a space, but the possibilities are limitless. But our strategy is to basically expand based on demand and our capabilities of one spoke to produce. If the current kitchen outgrows the capacity to service Kigali, for example, then it's a signal to either expand the size of that kitchen or get into strategic locations where most of our demand is coming. And we're very keen on just collecting as much insight and data on a day-to-day basis. Basically, my team is feeding me with insights from day one, and those are the things that enables us to make a decision on why should we extend one more hour in a day? Why should we open up Sundays? Why should we bring up a new product? Those kind of things. So we're using data as well a lot to make some of those decisions. And so starting with Kigali and obviously looking at other strategic locations within the country, but we don't shy away from taking Ballistic outside this country. So like I said, it's important for us to take with us an identity of the land wherever we go. So that's where my biggest equation lies. I want to mold new products around the identity of the land, but it's still comfort food. It might look like a burger or look like something else, but that's where we're going.
Yeah. What about Richard as a person? Where are you going?
In as much as I landed in tech by accident, tech is still where my heart beats. So let's see what we're able to accomplish with it. I feel like we're in a position to make a very big impact, not just in Rwanda, but on the continent. So I want to be part of that story, obviously, but I want to be able to explore and be challenged and also grow in that space, because I feel like my journey is still young in the professional space. So I want to get exposed to other startups that are doing crazy stuff that I can be a part of and be able to build great products with. So consider me a product person for life, whether it's a product manager or product designer. I struggle with identifying myself on either. I'm just a product person, I guess, because even what we're doing with Ballistic is creating products. Yeah. So that's going to be primarily the thing I do, but every once in a while I'll be getting into more passion projects like I did with Ballistic, because it's the fuel to what keeps me going on a day-to-day. I want ultimately to exhaust all the things that I've wanted to do in this life, hopefully. Yeah. So tomorrow, if you see me release albums, don't be shocked. Or produce albums, as a matter of fact, or any other thing that is deeply rooted in the things that I aspire to do or be. So,
Richard, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, man, for the work that you're doing as a product designer, designing products that help us not stand in long queues trying to get government products and services, but also for feeding us. We're stuck at work and we're stuck in our houses and feeding us amazing burgers and building a great brand that we can export to other markets. Thanks a lot, man. And hope to see you succeed.
For this opportunity, and all the best with the podcast and all the great stuff you do.
Thank you, man. Cheers.
All right.